Honourable Prime Minister.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, we see the Leader of the Opposition pushing a brokenist vision of Canada that is simply not aligned with the reality. Yes, Canadians are struggling like people are all around the world after years of high inflation and disrupted supply chains and global conflicts has weighed heavily on everyone around the world. But Canadians continue to see opportunities. Canadians continue to see investment.
Yeah, I had to show that to you because I missed it earlier in the week. The brokenness segment. Trudeau invented a new word, except he didn't. But we'll show the response from Poilievre when we get back later. But Canada is a broken country. There's no question. And the immigration system is broken. So are you taking some heart? Are you taking some sense of optimism from Justin Trudeau's announcement of 21% reduction in permanent residents? I'll tell you why you probably shouldn't when we come back.
So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need the resolve to resist.
Yes, please like the station. At this point in the broadcast, it does help us beat the YouTube censorship and suppression, which we are beating effectively with your help. And every day that you support this station simply by liking it, simply by sharing it with your family, your friends, your neighbors, if we can, it helps the station. And we are here to beat Trudeau's censorship. And I got a brief clip later. What I'm going to do either tomorrow or later in the week is talk about how the Conservative Party has been not fighting Bill C-63, and I think we know why now. And I'll show you a brief clip, and we'll get into that one later in the week, next week. But right now, we're talking about immigration and the immigration sham that we have in this country, and it is a complete sham because Justin Trudeau made a promise. Let's listen briefly to his tortuous announcement.
Words, and thank you for your hard work as Parliamentary Secretary on immigration. Bonjour tout le monde. Good morning, everyone. In a moment, Minister Miller will be detailing our immigration plan. Before he does, I want to say a few things. Canadians are justifiably proud of our immigration system. It has made...
No, we're not justifiably proud, Justin Trudeau. And the problem with the immigration system is not just that you have let too many immigrants in, too many illegal immigrants in. It's the fact that your government let too many illegal immigrants in.
Our economy, the envy of the world. It's how we've built strong, diverse communities. It's how we've demonstrated that differences can and must be a source of strength, not a...
So you remember when Justin Trudeau said any opposition to immigration, any opposition to his immigration policy constituted racism, outright racism. That meant you were a racist, even though there was absolutely no correlation between saying we have to regulate the number of people coming into Canada because we don't have enough jobs or housing for them. That's not racist. That's common sense. But he continues to talk this way, and he's trying to justify, here he is slashing immigration, supposedly, by 21%, not today, by the way, after the next election. And he's saying, oh, but it's not racist now to think that way because I'm still the guy who believes in diversity is our strength. Just a few minutes more.
For communities and society. Immigration.
All right, I want you to hear Jagmeet Singh's response to this because I can't believe he's standing on a street corner someplace here with the leaves falling. And he gets a question about, what do you think about Trudeau's new immigration policy?
Well, I would take a step back and first of all say that what the Liberals are doing is, and Justin Trudeau is doing, is acknowledging that he messed up. He's acknowledging that there's been problems in the immigration system, but more so that there's been serious problems with his lack of action on building adequate housing and investing sufficiently in the healthcare system. And what he's doing is he's doing a minor tweak of 20%. He's not actually addressing the serious challenges that people have when it comes to the immigration system, when it comes to our healthcare, when it comes to housing. People come to Canada with the hope that they can build a good life, but that is not what's going on right now. People hope that they can get a good job, find a home that they can afford, and be able to get access to the healthcare they need. That is not happening right now. And that is fundamentally what Justin Trudeau and the Liberals have failed to address, is the underlying problems. And this tweak doesn't actually get at the real root causes.
What the hell are the real root? What is the problem here then? Does he have a problem with the current number? He doesn't even have the guts to tell you that he would increase the numbers. That 500,000 new immigrants a year isn't enough for Jagmeet Singh. What the problem seems to be is we're not building enough free housing for these people coming to Canada. That's the problem for Jagmeet Singh, but he won't even articulate that. He just says, well, Trudeau's wrong. And he actually, at times, he sounds like Pierre Poilievre when he says people come to Canada because they want a good job and they want a house, affordable house, and in healthcare. He doesn't say it's even public healthcare. Yeah, we all want healthcare, but we're not getting good healthcare from the government. And let's listen to Pierre Poilievre's response to this. And I'll stop at a couple of junctures to make a point here, because I want to say that the Stephen Harper government had immigration levels were half of what they are right now. They're 500,000 under Justin Trudeau. His plan to cut immigration, new immigration, is, like I say, a year away, by which time we will have had another election. So it's elect me and then we'll slash immigration. And it's not even going to be slashed. But the problem here, and I'll say this again, it's not the new immigrant, it's not the permanent residents, it's not the illegal immigration, it's the illegal immigration. And Poilievre makes references to that vaguely, not enough, in his response to Trudeau's immigration policy change. What do you think is going to happen as soon as Donald Trump seals the border, or as soon as the illegals crossing the U.S. border know that Donald Trump is going to be president and inaugurated very shortly? What do you think is going to happen to these tens of millions of illegals in the United States? Have you asked yourself that question? Because when I was talking to J.J. Carroll, who is a former deputy in charge with the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, and you probably saw the interview on here or on Rumble. He's also been on Redacted many times. I'm going to have JJ on again this show to talk about immigration and the effects it could have on Canada. But when he was on the show the last time, he said, now his estimate is 45 million illegals in the United States right now, just under the Biden-Harris administration. 45 million. Where do you think those people are going to go when they know their time is limited, that they're going to be subject to mass deportations in the United States? North. They're not going back to Mexico. They're not going to go back. They're not going to go back to Guatemala, Honduras, Costa Rica. Well, actually, very few from Costa Rica, because it's a stable country. Central America, South America. My God, they're coming from far off as the Middle East and China. You think they're going to go back to their ports of entry? They're going to try to get into Canada. How effective, I ask you, was Justin Trudeau in the past at stopping mass illegal immigration? You remember Roxy Road? You remember what happened there? You think he's going to stop so-called asylum seekers from walking across the border and then getting lost in Canada? You think he's going to clamp down on illegals walking across the border? No, he won't. And that number will not be part of his immigration package. It won't be part of the 21% cut because they're not officially there. They're not officially here. They're illegally here. So that is what we have looming as a border crisis in Canada. And if you think it ain't going to happen here, you're wrong, because that's exactly what is going to happen as a natural progressive. Let's listen to let's listen to Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre articulate his response to Justin Trudeau's policy change in immigration.
Promise, like everything else, is broken after 9 years of Trudeau and the NDP Liberals. Most of all, he broke our immigration system. Today's immigration flip-flop is a massive admission of failure by Justin Trudeau, an admission that he's not worth the cost or the corruption, with his own MPs working to throw him out. And less than a year from the carbon tax election, Trudeau has suddenly admitted that radical, uncontrolled immigration and policies related to it are partly to blame for joblessness, housing, and healthcare crises. In fact, let's remember, after 9 years of Trudeau, we have 1 in 10 Torontonians lined up at food banks. We have 1,400 homeless encampments across the province of Ontario. 2 million Canadians have to go to a food bank every month. Scurvy is making a comeback. We have the worst economy in the G7. Everything is broken. And his immigration minister admits that that immigration is out of control after 9 years of Liberal policies. They increased population growth by 200% over the last several years alone. Now, Trudeau called anyone who disagreed with these radical policies racist.
Now he hits on the point there. What happened to that argument? You cut immigration, you're a racist? Trudeau has said it. His immigration ministers have said it. Now, Poilievre, yes, very smartly brings this up. Now, suddenly, it's no longer racist to cut immigration because we live in a 1984 type society in Canada where what was true yesterday isn't necessarily true today and could be not true tomorrow because the truth constantly changes in Canada. And so does Liberal policy. And Justin Trudeau, he threw out this immigration as a piece of red meat for those in the caucus who know his immigration policy is killing their chances of being reelected. So he threw out the immigration. And he knows damn well that he doesn't have to do anything about it until after the next election.
Now he's the one cutting immigration to pull back on the disastrous mistakes that he made. But worst, he destroyed the best immigration system in the world, a system that had a common sense consensus of conservatives and liberals for 150 years. Immigration was not even controversial.
Now, this is entirely debatable, and I'm sure a lot of you are watching and saying, what? Immigration was just fine until Justin Trudeau? There were no problems with it. Well, of course there were. If Pierre Poilievre was talking about immigration under Stephen Harper, where it was much better, and there was more of a consensus, well, I would probably have to agree with that. But to say that it was always good, even under people like Jean Chrétien and Pierre Trudeau, even Brian Mulroney, do I think the immigration system was just wonderful? I think there's a problem here. But if he's talking about Stephen Harper doing a better job on immigration than Justin Trudeau, yeah, I would have to concur.
Before Trudeau came along. How did he do it? He left Roxham Road open for a year after President Biden offered to close it.
All right, Roxham Road. He doesn't get into what happened at Roxham Road. Do you remember? We had scores, hundreds of thousands of illegals coming across the border at Roxham Road in Quebec, going to Montreal. They were being housed at the old Big O Stadium, the old Olympic Stadium in Montreal. And they were being housed in 4-star hotels in Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto. They were filling up every hotel and every facility made for emergency housing, emergency accommodation. That's Justin Trudeau's immigration policy. That's what we're not talking about today. That's what happened in terms of illegal immigration, and that's what we have to be concerned about.
He removed the visa requirement for Mexico, which caused an explosion of false and fraudulent refugee claims. And he allowed rampant fraud and abuse in the international student program, which has seen as many as 26 kids living in one Brampton basement and countless losing their lives to drugs, gangs, and other chaos on our streets, sent back in body bags to countries like India. He allowed ISIS terrorists into Canada, who then went on to try and attack Jews and other Canadian citizens. He's presided over a 251% increase in police-reported hate crimes. None of these decisions, by the way, were designed to bring workers to help with the COVID labor shortage, because none of those programs are labor programs. Roxham Road is not a labor program. Refugee claimants are not part of a labor program. International students are not supposed to be for labor, but for study. So this excuse is total nonsense. Trudeau's last-minute pre-election reversal cannot be believed. He can't fix the immigration system that he broke. And he now says he's going to cap immigration. Well, what else has he said he's going to cap? He said 6 months ago he was going to cap the number of temporary residents in this country to 5% of our population. Since that time, it's gone up to 7.3%.
And it goes on like this in the same vein. Now, Polyev, of course, needs to define, and I'm going to be as kind about this as possible. He needs to define what a conservative government will do in terms of immigration policy. Will it not just tinker with immigration, but will it go back to a meritocracy-based immigration policy, bringing in immigrants that we actually need to fill Canadian jobs? Now, there's been a lot of people out there think the temporary foreign worker program is a waste of time and useless. It certainly isn't in terms of its ability to fill agricultural jobs that Canadians won't do. And Polyev, to his credit, has stated this at numerous times. He understands why farmers bring in agricultural workers, because they do jobs that Canadians refuse to do. I hate to say that, because I bloody well picked apples and pears, and I picked strawberries and blueberries, and I've even planted trees. I've done hard physical labor. But unfortunately, you can't find a lot of Canadians in that age group these days who want to do that kind of work. So farmers are forced to bring in foreign workers. So that's the issue with that. And Polyev understands that. So I don't want to condemn Polyev's immigration policy when he has yet to announce what it is. There's a lot of people out there saying, he's all for mass migration, mass immigration. I have yet to hear him say that. If he's for mass immigration, then he's for the wrong policy. But he does need to come out with a principled conservative view on immigration that is based on common sense. He loves to use that word, common sense. And he needs to explain to conservative supporters and all Canadians where he's coming from on this issue, and that Canada will not tolerate a open border policy such as existed for a time under open borders policy Bill Blair and Justin Trudeau, and which has existed under 4 years of the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris regime in the United States. We need to end the open border policy, and we need to deport people who are here illegally, and not to put them on health care, not to give them free education, not to give them access to immigration lawyers. We need to end that policy, and Polyev needs to be tough about that. Yeah, bring in people who really need or want to be here for the right reasons. That's got to be Polyev's immigration policy. And I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt until he says otherwise. Because, my God, we need a change. I'm disturbed at Polyev saying that it's going to be a carbon tax election a year from now. It's going to be sooner, Pierre. I can tell you that. It's going to be sooner. And you know why? Listen to this block statement the other day. If you think Justin Trudeau doesn't want an election, he does. He's made that quite clear, because he thinks he can win it. I've been saying this. Everybody else wants to say, no, Justin Trudeau is going to prorogue. He's going to avoid the leadership vote by just disappearing, or he is going to have possibly a spring election. No, it's going to be sooner rather than later.
Flexibility, Mr. Blanchet, with your October 29th deadline. Have you seen any movement from the Liberals to accommodate what you're asking for?
If 5 weeks have not been long enough at the end of the exercise, it's the proof in itself that we were quite open-minded and that any longer time would have been useless. We've been open enough.
You're not giving them any more chances.
No, I'm not.
Well, if he's not, then I guess I'm not either. And that's good news because the NDP, of course, all over that. You can't trust Jagmeet Singh because what he says on Wednesday is different from what he said on Tuesday and will be different from what he says on Thursday. But the opposition to Poilievre's non-confidence motions is clear. And you watch, the Bloc will raise a non-confidence motion next week. Conservatives will support it. The NDP, I predict, will support the next one because they want to be the official opposition, and they see that coming in an election now. And you will get Liberal MPs voting with the Conservatives. Now, am I just coming up with it? No, this is a viable alternative to a spring or fall election in 2025. This could actually come to pass in the next week. When I come to you next Saturday, we could be talking about a fall election. I'm one of the few people talking that way, but we'll see. Like I say, I don't say this because I sit on my behind in front of my books all day, and I've never haven't spent any time working as a real journalist or at the House of Commons. I know what I say is possible because of what has happened in the past. So we'll see what happens here. And these are very exciting and dynamic times. But I'll tell you what, I'm taking heart about something really exciting here. Remember the episodes we did on Bill C-293? This is the crazy Liberal backbench bill to ban animal products, to ban meat during a pandemic. Nate Erskine-Smith, Liberal MP. This is his bill. This is the guy who interviewed Justin Trudeau. He's got a YouTube station, about 50 people watch it. It's actually probably better than a lot of other YouTube stations in terms of having real content. But he had Justin Trudeau on his show recently, and I showed you the clip where Justin Trudeau is totally excited, enthused about having an early election because he wants to defeat Pierre Poilievre, and nobody else can do it but me, he says. So this is his bill. This is a bad bill. This is a bill that is before the Senate right now. Now, we had a couple of shows on this, and it got people energized. It got them phoning, emailing, texting their senators saying, don't let this bill pass. And listen to what Alberta is saying. It's getting involved in this now, too, because their people are fighting back. We are all resolving to resist.
Jay Sigurdsson, Minister of Agriculture and Irrigation for the province of Alberta. Now, I'm here today because Alberta's government is concerned about a federal bill that is now before the Senate. From an agricultural perspective, Bill C-293, an act respecting pandemic prevention and preparedness, encroaches on our constitutional jurisdiction under Section 95 and singles out the animal agricultural and food industry if we face another pandemic. These proposed changes could devastate Alberta's agricultural industry and have huge negative consequences on producers, processors, and our entire provincial economy. If the bill passes through the Senate, the federal government would have the discretionary power to allow public health officials to shut down facilities like livestock operations and meat processing plants without clear, objective criteria. This would disrupt meat supply chains and other agricultural operations linked to them, like feed production, which would place our role as a major food supplier at risk.
if passed into law, could dramatically alter one of our province's biggest industries. Now, Alberta's ministers of Agriculture and Health were joined by representatives from the pork, poultry, and beef industries today, echoing fears about what powers this law could leave the federal government, while also assuring the Senate and Albertans that they're taking care of safety as it stands today.
Alberta's chicken farm families follow strict biosecurity and animal welfare standards under the Raised by a Canadian Farmer on-farm food safety program, which is recognized and audited at the federal level.
Alberta will make decisions about responding to public health emergencies in a way that best serves Albertans, not the federal government.
Now, the group isn't asking to throw out the bill, rather have the Senate get back to the table with people like them to clear up some of the language. And guys, even though this bill's been floating around the Senate for nearly 2 years now, the need for the press conference today was brought on by the voices heard from the industry, from Albertans. They've grown stronger and a little bit more frantic as this one does get closer to being passed into law.
All right, so you think the work we do here is meaningless at times? I never do, because I know we're reaching people, even if it's just the audience I'm talking to right now. But yes, we're doing something worthwhile, and I think this proves it, because there was no pushback, no significant pushback on this bill until we started talking about it, until we exposed how bad this bill is. This is not some bill about making Canadians safer. Everything the Liberal government does makes Canadians safer. If you listen to them, if you believe their language, it's going to make life safer for you. Just like the C-63, the Online Harms Act. It's going to make Canadians safe. Even though the laws it projects in terms of protecting children and women or anybody else are laws we already have. This law is aimed at exterminating free speech in Canada, getting rid of it, eviscerating it. That's what this law is about. Now you wonder, and I won't dwell on this. This is a sneak preview of what a show I'm putting together on why are we not getting more pushback from the Conservatives on Bill C-63? Why are we not getting more of a articulated response other than to say, yeah, it's a bad thing, it sounds Orwellian, and it's going to cost a lot of money for the bureaucracy? Listen to this guy, Chris Alexander. He was an MP for 4 years from Ajax Pickering at the time. He was defeated, ironically, by a Liberal, Mark Holland. And Chris Alexander was the Minister of Immigration from 2011 to 2014 under Stephen Harper. Listen to how this guy talks. I won't show much of it, but it's chilling. And what brings me into this is I am going to be contacting an old, shall we say, colleague, David Puglisi of the Ottawa Citizen. He is an excellent defense writer. Now, Chris Alexander accused him of being a Russian agent. This is absurd. Absolutely absurd. Why? Because he dared to criticize Canadian Forces policy? Because he dared to write stories about aid to Ukraine? Perhaps not going to the right places? Because he dared to criticize the official narrative, which I will add, the Conservatives are in lockstep with the Liberals over in terms of Ukraine. Look at this. Post media reporter, this is David Puglisi, says KGB allegations. And this is he was working for the KGB? I've known this guy for 20 years. He's not working for the KGB. He happens to be an expert at access to information requests. I don't agree with every story he's ever done, but he's a damn good journalist. And he works hard. It's not easy to know what to ask for with access to information requests and then to use them in an efficient way. Puglisi is an expert at that, and he's an expert at probing and delving into corruption within the Department of National Defense. I worked in the National Defense for a large part of my life, my career. Yeah, there's corruption there. You damn well bet there is. I say that as a former officer in the Canadian Armed Forces. Of course there's corruption in the Department of National Defense. Of course they misspend money. Of course they have their own agenda at times. But this is fascinating. Just listen to a few minutes of Chris Alexander, and you'll understand why there are too many Conservative MPs who are in the bag on Ukraine and are in the bag on censorship because they really believe that if you dare deviate from the narrative, you're in the pay of Russia. Sorry. And this is the public service of safety.
For 10 years, Russia's been invading Europe's largest state. Full-scale onslaught began in 2022, as you all know, challenging the alliance's institutions and principles Canada fought 2 world wars to uphold. Moscow's genocidal war of aggression recalls the horrors of Hitler and Stalin, yet we've still not committed fully to defeating this aggressor or to Ukraine's victory. Now, why is that? Part of the answer is Russian disinformation, Russian active measures, Russian interference.
Okay, you idiot. We haven't spent enough money, billions of dollars from Canada alone. NATO hasn't spent enough money, hundreds of billions of dollars to prop up this corrupt regime in Ukraine that is not going to win this war. We haven't spent enough money. Our own military doesn't have a single Leopard tank left. Serviceable Leopard tank. We've given all the serviceable ones to Ukraine and they're on the battlefield blown up. We've given away everything we have to Ukraine with our national defense and we can't replace it. But we haven't given enough, hey, Chris?
According to Jakub Kalinski, Deputy Director of the Community of Interest on Hybrid Threats at Europe's Center of Excellence in Helsinki, Russia produces over 60% of disinformation worldwide and 80% in Europe. Its main vectors of distribution are still social media platforms, as Meta recently confirmed to you. But gray zone media, influencers, and other proxies, as well as state propaganda outlets like Russia Today, are also major threat actors.
That's a sneak preview of what's coming. This is going to be a major report on how we have completely missed what's important with misinformation and disinformation. The Liberal government is giving us misinformation and disinformation. There's not a Russian spy under every bed in this country. Why is it? I ask you that. As a lifelong anti-communist who served in the military, who served overseas, why is Russia more of a threat today than we ever thought, or that liberals ever thought they were during the Cold War when it was a communist country? Why is Russia more of a threat today? Why are they constantly feeding us the frenzy of hate Russia, hate the Russians because we need to keep the wars going? And that's the reason, my friend. We need to keep the wars going because people are making a lot of money off of foreign wars, off of the military-industrial complex. That's why we have to keep people insane about wanting to go to war with Russia right now. We don't want a war with Russia. And it's very, if you can't get that, if you can't understand why a war with Russia would be a bad thing, then maybe watch something like Dr. Strangelove. When people did understand that a nuclear war would be not just unwinnable, but should be unthinkable, because it would be nothing but global carnage for both sides, for everybody involved. And we don't want to fight Russia over this war in Ukraine. We need to end the war in Ukraine, and we need a settlement. Because every day, we grow closer and closer to nuclear war. And what's happening right now in the Middle East with Israel attacking Iran, this escalates the potential for nuclear war there because it is an alliance system just like the First World War. The dominoes begin to fall because Russia is backing Iran in this. Israel wants the United States to join it in its attack on Iran. Joe Biden's no longer in control at all. We've got a bunch of bureaucrats making the calls, making the decisions at the White House. We have the horrifying potential of Vice President Kamala Harris becoming the next president, if she already isn't de facto right now, although she's not capable of making foreign policy decisions. They're being made for her by Secretary of State Tony Blinken. That's who's really in charge right now of U.S. foreign policy. But this is horrifying material because it's a beautiful day here. It's October 26, 2024. The sun is shining. The leaves are gold. But it could be a very horrifying world if people don't think of what they're doing. I'll leave that with you. We've gone a little overtime today. Thank you. It's a beautiful Saturday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you for watching me today. I will be back again tomorrow. And we're going to continue to fight for free speech on this station. We're going to continue to fight for truth. We're in the bag of no politician. We fight for you. And I'm trying to give you all the news you need to know. Can't do that every day. But I want you to continue to resolve, to resist, because that's what this station is all about. Thank you for your comments today. Thank you, Sylvain Robert. And thank you, H. We love you. God bless you. Come back tomorrow for more.